Hello everyone and welcome. I'm excited to share with you today about nutrition in plants. This is the first slide, and it sets the stage for our discussion. We'll explore how plants obtain and use nutrients to grow and thrive. Over the next few slides, we'll cover key processes, important nutrients, and how plants interact with their environment. Let's get started. Today, we're going to look at the contents of our presentation, which are organized into four main topics. First, we have science, which will help us understand the fundamental principles behind nutrition. Next, we'll explore types of nutrients, where we'll learn about different nutrients our bodies need to stay healthy. Then, we'll focus on nutrition itself, what it really means, and how it impacts our overall well-being. Lastly, we'll examine symbiosis, a fascinating concept that shows how different organisms, including humans, can coexist and benefit from each other through various biological relationships. These sections are all connected and together. They give us a comprehensive view of the vital role nutrition plays in our lives and how it influences our interactions with the environment. Let's talk about science, which is at the core of what we're exploring today. Science isn't just a collection of facts. It's a dynamic process of discovery that helps us understand how the world works. It involves asking questions, forming hypotheses, and conducting experiments to find answers. This method allows us to build knowledge systematically and reliably. Throughout our presentation, we'll see how scientific principles underpin innovative solutions and drive progress across various fields. Recognizing the importance of science helps us appreciate the foundation of many advancements and the potential for future breakthroughs. Let's talk about science and its crucial role in our understanding of the world. Science is fundamentally about exploring and explaining how things work, from the tiniest particles to the vast universe. It provides us with evidence-based knowledge, which is essential for making informed decisions and advancing technology. Throughout this presentation, we've seen how scientific discoveries drive innovation and solve complex problems. Science is the backbone of progress, connecting all the ideas we've discussed and helping us build a better future. So, understanding scientific principles is key to appreciating the bigger picture and the impact we can have through knowledge and inquiry. Let's talk about nutrition, which is a fundamental aspect of overall health and well-being. Good nutrition provides the essential nutrients our bodies need to function optimally, from energy production to immune support. It's not just about eating healthy. It's about understanding what our bodies truly require and how to meet those needs through balanced choices. When we focus on proper nutrition, we support our physical health, mental clarity, and even our emotional resilience. Throughout this presentation, we'll see how nutrition ties into the bigger picture of maintaining a healthy lifestyle and achieving our long-term goals. Remember, small, consistent dietary habits can make a significant difference over time. Let's talk about nutrition and why it's such a crucial part of our overall health. Nutrition is essentially the foundation that supports all our body functions, from energy levels to immune health. When we make good nutritional choices, we're fueling our bodies with the essential vitamins, minerals, and nutrients they need to perform at their best. It's important to understand that not all foods are created equal. The key points here are balance, variety, and moderation. Focusing on a balanced diet means including a mix of fruits, vegetables, lean proteins, whole grains, and healthy fats. Variety ensures we're getting a broad spectrum of nutrients, while moderation helps us avoid overconsumption of less healthy options. Connecting this to the overall theme of our presentation, maintaining good nutrition isn't just about physical health. It influences our mental well-being, energy levels, and even our ability to stay focused and productive. So, making mindful choices about what we eat can truly enhance every aspect of our lives. Now, let's take a closer look at the different types of nutrition that our body needs. When we talk about nutrition, we're essentially referring to the substances that provide us with energy and support our growth, repair, and overall health. There are several key categories here. First, carbohydrates, which are our body's main source of energy. Think of foods like bread, rice, and pasta. They fuel our daily activities. Then we have proteins, essential for building and repairing tissues, especially muscles. Common sources include meat, beans, and dairy. Next up are fats, which also provide energy and help with the absorption of certain vitamins. Healthy fats are found in foods like nuts, seeds, and fish. Finally, vitamins and minerals are micronutrients that support various bodily functions, from immune health to bone strength. They come from fruits, vegetables, and other nutrient-rich foods. Understanding these different types of nutritions helps us make balanced food choices, which is a core part of maintaining good health and optimizing our overall well-being. Autotrophic. When we talk about autotrophic organisms, we're referring to those that can produce their own food. They don't rely on consuming other organisms for energy. Instead, they use inorganic substances like carbon dioxide and convert them into organic molecules. This process is fundamental because it forms the base of most food chains. Think of plants, algae, and certain bacteria. They all fall into this category. By being autotrophic, these organisms essentially serve as the primary producers in their ecosystems. They capture energy from sunlight or chemical sources and kickstart the flow of energy through the food web. This concept ties into the overall theme of how energy and nutrients cycle through different life forms on Earth. Let's take a closer look at autotrophic organisms, specifically plants, and how they perform photosynthesis. As you can see on the slide, water, or H2O, is one of the key ingredients. Plants absorb water through their roots, which then gets transported to the leaves where photosynthesis occurs. Oxygen, or O2, is another vital component. Interestingly, oxygen is actually a byproduct of photosynthesis, so when plants make their food, they release oxygen into the atmosphere. Then we have carbon dioxide, which is essential for the process. Plants take in CO2 from the air through tiny openings called stomata on their leaves. Putting it all together, these three elements, water, oxygen, and carbon dioxide, are fundamental for photosynthesis. This process allows plants to convert light energy into chemical energy, fueling not just their own growth, but also supporting life on Earth by producing oxygen and food. So, these components connect directly to the overall theme of autotrophic life and how plants sustain themselves and the environment around them. Let's talk about autotrophic nutrition in plants, specifically photosynthesis in green leaves. Inside these leaves, there are numerous tiny green structures called chloroplasts. The green color of these chloroplasts comes from a pigment called chlorophyll. Chlorophyll is essential because it captures energy from sunlight, which powers the whole process. Now, leaves also take in carbon dioxide from the air through small pores called stomata. These stomata are usually located on the underside of the leaves. Surrounding each stoma are guard cells, which control whether the stomata are open or closed. This regulation helps the plant balance gas exchange and water loss. Water is absorbed from the soil by tiny root hairs in the roots and transported upward. This water, along with minerals, travels through vessels called xylem, which act like pipes. These pipes run through the roots, stem, branches, and into the leaves. Using sunlight energy, a chemical reaction occurs in the green parts of the plant. In this process, carbon dioxide and water are converted into food, specifically glucose. Oxygen is produced and released as a byproduct of this reaction. Since this process depends on sunlight, we call it photosynthesis, literally, making food with light. The glucose produced is then transported through the stem to other parts of the plant. In most plants, this glucose is converted into starch and stored in leaves, stems, or roots for future use. This entire process is fundamental to how plants sustain themselves and provide energy for the entire ecosystem. Let's dive into heterotrophic nutrition. This is a type of nutrition where organisms cannot make their own food through photosynthesis or chemosynthesis. Instead, they rely on consuming other organisms or organic matter. It's a key concept because it highlights how different living beings obtain the energy and nutrients they need to survive. In contrast to autotrophs, which produce their own food, heterotrophs are dependent on external sources. This includes animals, fungi, and many bacteria. For example, Animals eat plants or other animals, while fungi break down organic material in their environment. Understanding heterotrophic nutrition helps us see the diversity of life strategies on Earth. It also connects to the broader theme of energy flow and nutrient cycling in ecosystems. Everything we study about ecosystems and food webs ties back to how organisms obtain and use their nutrients. So, recognizing these different nutritional modes is fundamental to grasping how life sustains itself in various environments. Let's talk about heterotrophic nutrition. So, what exactly is it? Well, animals and non-green plants like fungi and bacteria can't make their own food. Instead, they rely either directly or indirectly on green plants for their nutrition. This mode of getting food is called heterotrophic nutrition, and organisms that do this are known as heterotrophs. Now, if we look at herbivorous animals, they depend directly on plants for their energy. Carnivores, on the other hand, depend on other animals, which themselves depend on plants. So, when we eat meat, we are actually depending on plants indirectly. And since green plants get their energy to make food from the sun, we can say that the sun is the ultimate source of energy for all living things. This connection highlights how energy flows through the food chain, linking all organisms together. Now let's talk about parasitic plants. These are some non-green plants that actually live in or on other living organisms, and they get their food from them. It's a fascinating relationship because these plants don't photosynthesize like many others. Instead, they rely on their host for nutrients. A great example of this is the dodder plant. You might have seen it. It's a vine that wraps around other plants and essentially sucks food from them. These plants are called parasitic plants because they depend on their hosts for survival, which makes their relationship quite different from the typical plant that makes its own food through photosynthesis. Understanding parasitic plants helps us see the diverse ways plants adapt to their environments, and it ties into the broader theme of plant relationships and survival strategies we're exploring today. Let's talk about partial parasites. The plant that a parasite depends on for food is called a host. Now, some parasitic plants, like the mistletoe, are quite interesting because they can actually carry out photosynthesis. They have green leaves, which means they can make their own food, just like other green plants. However, even though they can produce some food on their own, they still rely on their host plants for water and minerals. In this way, they take what they need from the host without completely depending on it for all their nourishment. These plants are known as partial parasites because they do a bit of both, photosynthesis and parasitism. This concept helps us understand how some plants adapt to their environment by balancing independence and dependence, fitting into the larger picture of plant survival strategies. Let's take a closer look at insectivorous plants, starting with the pitcher plant. In this fascinating plant, a leaf has been modified to create a pitcher-like structure, complete with a lid. This unique adaptation allows the plant to trap insects for nutrition. Inside the pitcher, you'll notice hairs pointing downward, which play a crucial role in guiding the insects deeper into the trap. When an insect enters the pitcher, the lid closes, trapping it inside. Once trapped, the insect becomes entangled in the downward-pointing hairs, making escape difficult. The plant then secretes digestive juices from specialized cells lining the inside of the pitcher, breaking down the insect's body and absorbing the nutrients. This process highlights how these plants have evolved to supplement their nutrient intake in nutrient-poor environments. Overall, insectivorous plants like the pitcher plant demonstrate incredible adaptations that enable them to thrive where other plants might struggle. Let's talk about saprotrophs. Some non-green plants actually live off dead and decaying plants and animals, and they get their nutrients from these sources. Examples of such organisms include mushrooms, other fungi, and bacteria. These organisms secrete digestive juices directly onto the dead matter, breaking down the solid material into a liquid form. Once it's in liquid form, they absorb the nutrients from it. This process is known as saprotrophic nutrition, and it's a key way these organisms obtain their food. The fungi and bacteria that use this method are called saprotrophs or saprophytes. You might find spores of fungi floating around in the air. They're always present in the environment. When these spores land on wet, warm surfaces, they start germinating and growing. You'll often see fungi growing on shoes, clothes, pickles, and other objects, especially in warm and humid weather. This highlights how adaptable and widespread saprotrophic organisms are, and how essential they are in breaking down and recycling dead organic matter in nature. It's a fascinating part of the larger picture of how nutrients circulate in ecosystems. So, as we wrap up, let's talk about symbiosis. Symbiosis is all about the close and long-term relationships between different species, where both parties often benefit. It's a fascinating concept because it highlights how interconnected life really is. When we think about ecosystems, these relationships are essential. They help maintain balance and promote survival. Whether it's bees pollinating flowers or bacteria aiding in digestion, symbiosis shows us how cooperation can be more advantageous than competition alone. Recognizing these interactions helps us understand the bigger picture of sustainability and biodiversity. Ultimately, embracing the idea of symbiosis reminds us that working together often leads to the most resilient and thriving systems.